Man, it feels like Anthony Edwards' career just got shot out of a cannon because as soon as he stepped foot on an NBA court, we knew this kid was going to be something special. Started out his first year in the NBA, averaging around 19 points, 1 steal a game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. We all saw the potential that was there, but unfortunately, he was on a team and still is on that team, but consisted of a team that just simply just was not good or built to win at any capacity. Now, he kind of just missed out of the Jimmy Butler era where he was in the Minnesota Timberwolves, but Anthony Edwards has carved his own legacy post Jimmy Butler era. Especially when you think about the team, being a dying franchise, they needed something to kind of captivate its base, captivate its audience, and bring life back to Minnesota. Before, it was just Kevin Garnett, and Kevin Garnett was only there for a short time, a while, and then he ended up leaving. And so Minnesota's always been kind of like a despot place where there's not really much happening over there, and they're kind of weirdly placed because they're more so in the East Coast, but they're in the Western Conference. And so we've always said in the past that, hey, they will be a really good East Coast team, but they're in the Western Conference, so they're never good. But Anthony Edwards has shifted that narrative greatly, pretty much by the time he set foot in the NBA. Like I said before, averaging 19 points as a rookie is not a simple feat. In order for you to do that, listen, you have to be talented. Now, I know it wasn't on a winning team or in winning effort, but when you look at the game, you look at how he plays the game, you can see he's really efficient. He's a slasher first and three-point shooter second. But that doesn't really take away from his game because he is strong and tall. He's a big, strong guard who is able to kind of like bully his way into the hoop, bully his way into the paint. And he also has the hops of somebody who is a Chicago great, Michael Jordan. Now, a lot of people have made this comparison of Anthony Edwards being very similar to Michael Jordan. And listen, they're not wrong. I mean, if you guys look, you can see the similarities is there. The explosiveness, the gracefulness with his athleticism, the type of game that he has. His post fade is very reminiscent of Michael Jordan. There's a lot of things about him, even his acrobatic nature when he goes for lobs or goes for, change ups in the air, layups and stuff like that. There is a lot to look at and a lot to love from a lot of old heads too when they watch this game because they want to see something that is very close to Michael Jordan, not only in mentality, but also in play. Because usually you only see post-ups by, veteran players who doesn't have the athleticism or the speed or the agility to get to the places that they once were. And so they have to develop a post game. It's really rare to see somebody coming out of college with a refined post game. It's really rare to see just anybody coming out of college who's that good anyway from the jump. But Anthony Edwards is just simply on a whole different playing field. Every single year he's gotten to the league, if you're just looking at points, you see that he has increased by incremental amounts from 2 points to 3 points and all the way now to averaging his career best 26 points a game. It seems like every time I make some of these videos, I always highlight one player that is having a career season this year. And I feel like there's a lot of players who are having their best season. And it's really interesting to figure out why. And I think there are multiple theories that maybe I can talk about in a different video. But Anthony Edwards is one of those players who has consistently kind of like rose up in the ranks of where you would really see a lot of NBA careers kind of die. You would send people there to just pretty much just ride out until the end of their career. But when Jimmy Butler first got there, he kind of saw that he wanted to shift the culture. And I think Anthony Edwards is kind of like carrying the torch just a little bit. He's not the same way in terms of a bulldog mentality when it comes to leading the team. And in my honest opinion, he's not really much of a leader per se, but only a leader through the way that he scores and impacts the floor. This allows a lot of other teammates to kind of make way with what they can when he's on the court because he just pretty much gravitates the defense all the ways to the inside. Now, we're going to go over the Minnesota Timberwolves as a team later on in this video because there's a lot of issues that I see in the Minnesota Timberwolves that they really do need to fix, and I don't know if they can fix with their current roster. But even with the space, because space is a huge issue when it comes to this Minnesota Timberwolves team, Anthony Edwards is navigating in such limited space that it's really astonishing that he's even averaging 26 points a game. Now, the Timberwolves are a team where they're a little bit of an enigma, right? They're not a good offensive team. Even with Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns, they should be better. But there's an issue with this team that always plagues it, and that is the spacing. The spacing of this team is not that great. Maybe because of having a Nas Reed on the bench and having a Jaden McDaniels on the bench as well, I think maybe if they wanted to open up more space on their starting unit, their starter lineup, that they should really start those players. But then you have to think about, well, who's going to facilitate the ball? Because Anthony Edwards is not a point guard. He is a shooting guard through and through. Because when you look at a lot of their games, you look at a lot of the highlights, and you watch how the offense kind of runs, you see that the defense is pretty much staying within the free throw line. They're staying within the paint. And they're allowed to do that because they don't have many shooting threats on the court and on the floor that they're really scared of. Nas Reed, like I said, is a pretty good shooter. Mike Conley is just okay. And Jaden McDaniels is a pretty good shooter. But two of those players are just players coming off of the bench. And so you really, are banking a lot of your points coming from Anthony Edwards, who has made a career in killing in the mid-range. Now, the team does not kill in the mid-range because that's not how they're designed to play. They're designed to shoot threes if given the opportunity and let Cat and Anthony Edwards roll. But when they do have a presence in the paint, that's where Rudy Gobert really shines, because he shines in the pick and roll. He's one of the best pick and rollers in the game today. And right now, even with their stunted offense, they're still ranked first in the West. In the West, that's loaded with the great teams, with Clippers and OKC and even like the Lakers whenever they want to be good. But it's a loaded league over there. And really everywhere in the league is pretty much a hard, games to win. Even the Pelicans, who I have critiqued really heavily, because with the talent that they have on the team, at that point in time, they were underperforming. And now they're kind of like getting a lot of things in order. So I will give them props for that as well. But the thing that keeps the Timberwolves together is the fact that they have the best defense. They have pretty good perimeter defenders, but the things that they have pretty good perimeter defenders in Anthony Edwards, Nas Reed, but they're allowed to make a lot more mistakes than any other teams because they have a Rudy Gobert and a Karl-Anthony Towns in the paint. Now, Karl-Anthony Towns is a little bit of a weird position because he is truly a center that doesn't want to be a center. But he likes to stick out, play the guys who might be good shooters like power forwards or even small forwards at very odd times where he doesn't really be in the paint. But because Rudy Gobert is there, you offer another line of defense. Historically, Karl-Anthony Towns is not a really good interior defender. And sometimes he has shown that he can be that good of a defender, which is why in this year, with an added help on the interior inside, he's having one of his best defensive years. But this also comes with the caveat of one other thing. Rudy Gobert is not an offensive creator. He's a pick and roller at best. And then you have Karl-Anthony Towns, who is your only perimeter threat that I will say that you can't leave open for sure. And then you have Nas Reed coming off the bench, and so that's good. But if you were to watch these highlights, if you were to watch the games, see where the defenders are lined up. Are they lined up closer to the three or closer to the rim? A lot of the times they're closer to the rim, which honestly amazes me by how good Anthony Edwards continues to be and how much better he can be if given way, way more space. Because we see what happens when he has space. They can't keep up with him. And if they do keep up with him, he's too strong. He just bumps them out the way. And so there's a lot of things the Minnesota Timberwolves, even with being the #1 team in the West, can do to become even better. And that is simply just giving it more space. But outside of that, Anthony Edwards is just one of those players that is just truly special to watch. And he is one of those guys where even if you're old school or you're new school, everybody can come together and say, listen, we love his mentality. He is a hooper's first mentality. He will always give 1,000% effort on defense, 1,000% effort on offense. He reminds me of Russell Westbrook in that regard, where you can never question his effort. And then because he is so confident in his abilities, whether it be on defense or offense, he's always able to stay in the play and stay within the flow of the scheme. And I think it takes an even more level of attention to detail when you're asked to do a lot on offense, but also to be a willing participant on defense. And so when I look at his game, and yes, he's not an MVP caliber, but he should get MVP nods as well. Like 1,000%, he should get some MVP votes. But when you look at his game, you see how active he is one of those players where you can tell his mindset is there. Even when they were losing, you can tell that his mindset was there. When they won their first playoff game last year, when they weren't really predicted to really do anything and get swept, and they still got the gentleman's sweep. But you could tell in a lot of those games where he averaged 40 points in 2 of those games, he is a hooper, he's a dog. And there's not much else you can ask for a player to be your star player, to be the player of your franchise, the face of your franchise, to be a person like Anthony Edwards, because years after years after years have gone by and he has shown us that he will continue to be the person of the future, a person who will get at it at any cost. And this is something that I love to watch, especially as a basketball lover that I am, somebody who cares a lot about the game, because you can just tell night in and night out that Anthony Edwards wants a championship. And this is one of those years where you really hope for a person like him to win it all, because he deserves it, because he plays so hard.